All right, so this is 491, which is the second semester senior seminar. So this is a project course. We will not meet every day during the entire semester. We'll actually meet quite a bit at the very beginning. Then we'll meet a few times throughout the semester for updates and things like that. Most of the semester, you're going to be working independently on your projects and turning in weekly evaluations and working with me outside of class. So, having said that, the first couple weeks of this class are probably the worst. See me shrinking down? Are probably the worst because there's a lot of work that you have to do in a very short period of time right at the beginning of the class. Reason for that, we'll talk about it here in a second, is you have many of these papers and stuff like that are due before you can start working on your project. Your senior seminar project is something that's supposed to take most of the 15 weeks. This isn't something you're going to throw 10 hours at and expect to pass the class. This is something you should be looking at. If you think about a normal class, you meet, 3 hours a week for a normal class, and you're supposed to spend, 2 hours outside of class for every 1 hour inside of class? So, it's like 9 hours or so per week per class-ish. Multiply that across 15 weeks. A lot of time. All right, so any project that you choose to work on, I have some that are suggested up here on Angel, working with some clients who are friends of the university, or if you have your own ideas, which we'll talk about here in a minute, you need to have that in mind, that it needs to be a project that's acceptably large for something that's going to take a lot of time throughout the entire semester. This is something you want to be able to hang your hat on, and on your resume, you should be able to say, hey, I did this, and maybe even have a working demo or something like that. So, your grade in this class is going to be a breakdown between something called an idea paper, which is the first thing you'll create. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's 10% of your grade. Every week, you're required to turn in an assessment of what you accomplished that week. So think of them like weekly quizzes. You will automatically get an email reminder about the assessment. I think it goes out on, I want to say Friday morning maybe, at 8 a.m. And you have to have it turned in by midnight on Friday, I think is the due date for it. But you'll get a reminder letting you know that you need to do that assessment. But in any case, you have to do a weekly assessment, submit it. Actually, it's a reply to that email that automatically gets recorded. So just follow the instructions in the email. Whatever the email says, do that. But that's 20% of your grade, so that's kind of your incentive to keep up with the project, because what happens more times than not is students blow off the project for the first 14 weeks and then expect to come in and do this half-assed thing with 1 week left in class and come up here and do this crappy project and expect to pass, and that doesn't often work. So I want you to consider this to be a very important class, and you're lucky that you don't have to come every single day, because each project is an individual type project. But with that, benefit comes a responsibility of making sure you keep up on your project. So weekly assessments, 20% of your grade. A requirements document is 15% of your grade. So once I approve your idea paper, then you have to go and write the requirements document associated with that. After you get your requirements document approved, you have to write the specifications document. So requirements document is an unambiguous list of what your project will accomplish. The specifications document is an unambiguous document which describes how it will accomplish those requirements. Make sense? So I know a few of you are currently in the software engineering class, so in software engineering, you're going to learn about creating requirements documents and specification documents and those types of things, but you're going to learn that over the course of the entire semester. You need to create these for me in the next 2 weeks. So I guess that's on you for taking the class out of order, so it's not my problem, I suppose. There's plenty of templates and stuff out there. There really isn't a formal way of writing a requirements document, like a set way. There's plenty of templates you can use, and different requirements documents, different specification document templates make sense for different types of projects. There will be an in-class presentation. Some of you have attended those before. Those are usually the last week of class before finals week. Sometimes, especially in a class this big, we might have to go even the week before that. So some of you will have to have a majority of your project, at least enough to the point of it being presentable around week 13. You know, you don't have to have it completely done, but presentable. And then there's a documentation portion that needs to be turned in by the end of finals week, which brings everything together. It says this is what it was, this is how it works. I should be able to hand that to somebody else, and they should be able to pick up your project where you left off and continue to maintain it. Okay. And then it's the normal 90, 80, 70, blah, blah, blah grading scale. So that's what makes up your grade in this class. So let's talk about the idea paper, since that's the first thing you'll be doing. Until further notice, we will be meeting each class period. So until I turn you loose into the wild, expect to continue meeting. So we'll meet today, we'll meet on Thursday, so on and so forth. I expect that we'll continue meeting like that for at least the first 2 weeks, possibly into 3 weeks, but you know, we'll see. So idea paper. We go ahead into your lessons. This is a 2 to 3 page paper which covers the following topics. What is your project? What will it do? Who is the client? Why do they need this project? And how does the project relate to your degree program? So let's talk about projects. For starters, I have already identified a couple of external clients. If you'd like to potentially choose one of those, under potential projects in Angel, we have 5 different projects that I've already identified. There's a company out there called Seymour Golf that is looking for a mobile app, so this would be a programming-centric project, and you can go in there and read about it. Here's a website from the nursing department here on campus, so less programming, but still some programming. There's a project with the chemistry department, which Val can probably tell us more about, because I think you wrote the requirements document for it in the in her 370 class. So in any case, this is a project, whether it's a piece of standalone software or some sort of mobile app that accomplishes some things. You can read through this. This would be appropriate for at least 1 student, possibly 2 people could team up on this one. Kind of depends on who the students are. But I would call that a programming project as well. Just Joy website, another website. I would call that pretty similar in terms of programming level to the nursing department website. So not real heavy program, more IT bent. Putting together a content management based site like a WordPress or something like that, making it look nice, making it easy for them to add stuff to it, that kind of crap. And the last one is a healthcare mobile app, working with Dr. Terry Cowell, along with some other external Concordia people. And I'm getting more details on that on Thursday morning, but if you're interested in any of these, you should come up and talk to me after class today. We'll get out early. I'll stick around so you can come and ask questions. I know quite a bit about several of these projects, and I'll know more about some of the other ones. But out of these, I would say the Seymour, the chemistry, and the healthcare professional mobile app would be computer science major appropriate. If you're IT majors, so let me back up for a second. If you're a computer science major, your project absolutely must have something with computer programming in it. There has to be something deliverable that's running software. That doesn't mean it has to be all programming. It can be quite a bit of non-programming stuff, but there has to be a deliverable that has programming in it. If you are an IT major, your project does not require that it has some programming associated with it, but I'm going to be pretty strict as to it needing to be large enough to suffice for a senior seminar project. Even within some of these things, like these websites, we'll have to work with the client to make sure that the requirements for that are large enough, and if they're not, then we'll have to put some sort of additional hooks onto that make it worthwhile of being a senior seminar type project. Okay, so This is not something you can slap together in a weekend. This is something you should be spending 10 weeks, 15 hours a week working on. Not an easy task. All right, so computer science, you should definitely be thinking about something relating to software. IT doesn't have to be software, but the project still needs to be big enough. I'm looking at kind of complexity, need for the problem, and maybe your ability to get it done within the period of time. Now, having said that, let me go back here real quick. Your idea paper has these things in it. Now, what I encourage you to do is either look at the suggested projects, see if any of those pique your interest. You can come up and talk to me after class today. I'll kind of give you if any of those seem like they might be of interest, I can kind of give you an idea on what I know about them. Or I can connect you to the potential client. Alternatively, if you have a client in mind, whether it's a boss from wherever you work who wants to put you on a separate project, so this isn't something that you can double dip on, where if you are already working 40 hours a week for a place and your boss is just going to sign off on, oh yeah, we're already paying him to do this, so this is his project. This has to be over and above what you're already doing. But that person could be your client, could be a church, could be something like that. If you have your own idea for something that you want to accomplish, maybe it's a game, maybe it's some sort of business application, something that you've thought about. I can be your client if I think the project is appropriate scope for senior seminar. So if any of you have an idea like that and you want to hang out after class today and kind of run it by me, and I can give you an idea on whether that's too big, too small, whatever, I can direct you in that area. But ultimately, what you're going to have to produce is this idea paper. And this idea paper is going to be a 2 or 3 page paper. You have to tell me what the project is, so what you intend to do, what it's going to do, what your deliverable is going to end up being. Who is your client? So tell me not just their name, but what they do, blah, blah, blah. If your client's a church, tell me about the church, where it's located, all that stuff. Why does the client need this particular project? Give us some context as to why this needs to be accomplished, as opposed to, yeah, they wanted a website because I went up and asked them. I told them I needed a project. They said, oh, what the heck? Let's make a website. There's got to be a reason for this. And then how does this project relate to your degree program? Like I said, we have 2 degree programs here, computer science and IT. And you have to make an argument as to why the project you've chosen is an appropriate project for your degree program. Make sense? Okay. This idea paper is due a week from today. And you cannot move on to the next step. Can't move on to the requirements document until you've gotten this idea paper approved. So having said that, if you turn in the idea paper, I might have some questions that come back. So part of this is why we meet often during the first couple of weeks, because this isn't going to be something that you turn in and then you wait for 3 or 4 days for me to get back to you on. We're probably going to look at these in class, talk about your idea paper. I'll give you suggestions if I think it's, the scope isn't quite right on it or something like that. So you can go back, make little tweaks to it, and resubmit it. And as soon as I rubber stamp it and say, okay, this is good, then you start working on the requirements document. Working on the requirements document is going to involve you working closely with the client to make sure you completely understand what the project is. So create a detailed requirements document which will govern the requirements of your project. This is a living document that will likely change over the duration of your project, but your initial submission will be graded, so make it good. If your requirements document is 1 page long, it's possible that's a good requirements document, but I would say that's unlikely. To capture a project that needs to be of the scope that we're dealing with this semester, this requirements document probably needs to be, I would be surprised if your document was less than 3 or 4 pages long. Could be even longer. Okay. Keep in mind that the requirements document itself should unambiguously describe to me what you intend to accomplish. I should be able at the end of the semester to, after listening to your presentation and after getting your final project and your documentation, I should be able to look back at your requirements document and say, okay, this is what he said he was going to do. This is what they did. That makes sense? And those two should match up if you've accomplished what you intended to accomplish. So that requirements document needs to be very specific as to what you're going to accomplish, not not advertising page. If you're doing a website, you can't just say it's an advertising page. Tell me about what that page needs to accomplish. Okay? Once you have your requirements document approved, you move on to a specifications document. So this is a detailed specifications document which will govern the requirements of your project. Actually, I must have just duplicated that. I need to update this thing. This is going to govern the specifications of your project. This guy should be written in terms of your requirements document. That is, your requirements document says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. The specifications document should, for each of those, detail how you will do it. Okay? The idea is, this is kind of something interesting for those of you who have had software engineering. There's some really powerful software engineering tools out there where if you detail the requirements and design the specifications at a detailed enough level, there are tools out there that will almost completely code the software for you based off of your ER diagrams and things like that. So the when you're done with your requirements and your specifications document, writing the software, if it's a piece of software, or implementing the network, or if it's an IT type project, implementing those things should not be difficult. It should almost be paint by number. Does that make sense? You're going to have to fill in some of the details in between and put the effort in and do the research on how to accomplish some of the things that the specifications document says that you need to do. But it should give you a paint by number of how to do things. Now, notice I also mentioned these guys are living documents. So you'll be graded on your initial submission. But throughout the semester, your requirements document might change, your specifications document may change. If you feel that your requirements or your specifications document are greatly changing from what you originally submitted, we should probably discuss that, because I need to make sure that you're not making your project too much bigger or too much smaller where it's no longer within the scope of what it should be. That make sense? All right. Presentation. A lot of students think that it's all about the presentation. Well, it's only a small percentage of the final grade associated with this thing. Some people suck at presentations, some people are great at presentations. You can't come in and show me a bunch of fluff and expect to get an A. Similarly, presentations are an excellent opportunity to embarrass yourself. If you've worked all semester, a couple examples, last year we had a couple of students who showed some websites, and this is kind of my warning on websites. They basically showed something that should be, if you're a senior in computer science, which is what you should be in this class, that the website that they showed you should be able to put together in a weekend. And that was something that they worked on for the entire semester and didn't do well in the class because of that. Okay? So that's why that initial idea paper, that initial requirements document are very important, and that you stick to them. And that's why we do all that stuff the first couple weeks, so that you don't get to week 14 or week 13 and then you're surprised when I say, this isn't enough stuff. You'll know what's enough stuff after the first week or two from doing this stuff, these things. All right, make sense? Okay, so having said that, any questions somebody has? If you have, if you have an idea for a project, just at the high level, and you want to know if that's a good direction, you can ask it now. Otherwise, when I turn you loose here in a few minutes, I'm going to stick around. I can stay around for however long you need, an hour or whatever, and we could talk through project ideas you have. But in general, are there any questions that you have as far as the class goes? What's off limits, that kind of stuff? Nothing? Okay. So between now and next class, I would encourage you to be considering projects, emailing me if you have questions. You can even email me a preliminary summary, kind of what you would throw into your idea paper, and just say, does this sound like something that is reasonable? And I very likely will reply back with some additional ideas. One of my, I don't know if it's a positive skill set or not, but very often somebody will throw an idea at me and I'll come back to you with an idea that was better than your original one, but uses that as the core. You start throwing other things on it, and then you have to figure out what to back off to make it the right size project. But I don't know, I tend to be kind of a decent dreamer like that. So feel free to stay after class right now and ask me any questions. Throw your idea by me and I'll give you something to think about. Email me, text me. Might be hard to put a whole description thing in a text, but feel free to do that, and I'll respond back quickly. What we want to accomplish this week through communication with me or with your peers inside and outside of class is getting everybody on their idea paper so that they could submit it by Tuesday. That makes sense? Another thing that just came to mind, generally speaking, working in teams on a project does not work. Generally speaking. I would maybe entertain it on that chemistry department project. Maybe. But generally, team projects don't work out well. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So we'll stop there. I'll see everybody on Thursday. I'll chill until nobody needs me anymore, so I'm not going anywhere. Feel free to grab some cupcakes for the road. These are my birthday cupcakes. One of my students this morning brought them in. And I'll see everybody on Thursday.